September 11th, 2001 changed America and changed how we need to think about America.
Remember what we saw on the morning of 9/11. And knowing the nature of these enemies, we have as clear a responsibility as could ever fall to government.
We're not simply a country that has been threatened and attacked by terrorists. We are a country that faces endless terrorist attacks in the future.
In the face of preventable death and suffering, we have a moral duty to act. And we are acting.
Lesson we should learn from it is never give up. Never give up. So people have to have an optimistic spirit. We're going to get through this and we're going to be stronger.
Many Americans look to the federal government for protection against terrorist threats, and indeed that is an important resource. But more important than the federal government are 700,000 state and local police officers, over 2 million private security guards, and countless private organizations that must be mobilized to detect and prevent terrorist attacks. To do this, we have to link these various organizations together.
The issues of terrorism, issues of relationships. One of the things we benefit most from in this city, in this region, is extraordinarily good working relationships. We work together. We don't fight with each other. We may disagree from time to time, but we work together.
The Manhattan Institute for Public Policy Research has been working along with many other groups to bring state and local law enforcement into the anti-terrorist movement. We're very pleased to have William J. Bratton, Chief of the Los Angeles Police Department, and before that, Commissioner of the New York City Police Department, to talk about these issues. He has helped redirect local law enforcement efforts to better solve problems of crime and public order, and is now helping direct them to solve problems of terrorist prevention. Bill, everyone assumes that since we had September 11th and it occurred in New York and to a lesser extent in Washington, that the next attack might be in the same place, but Los Angeles, San Francisco, and other big cities clearly present very tempting targets. And so mobilizing local efforts to manage this intelligence function must be critical.
It is absolutely essential. The reality is, and you've heard recently the head of the FBI and others at the federal level, and certainly chiefs at the local level, indicating that, as we're seeing in Iraq, that there's potentially a renegade component that is seeing that it's much more effective to go after the individual attack day after day after day. And that's the one that I would worry about. That's the one I sweat.
Especially for homegrown terrorists, people who simply pick a target because they believe that killing people will somehow advance their cause.
That's correct. And that based on the British experience with the subway bombings, the Spanish experience with the train bombings, those were homegrown threats that, as best we can tell based on those investigations, were sponsored and controlled locally. That is certainly a concern we have in the United States. Our worst terrorist incident, with the exception of the 1993 World Trade incident, was Oklahoma City.
Yes.
With the horrific loss of life and destruction, and that was a homegrown effort. What we're seeing destroying so many lives in Iraq, the roadside bombs, that I think is going to be the more likely wave of terrorist activities we're going to see in the United States, more so than the weapons of mass destruction.
Yes. Bill, the Manhattan Institute, a major public policy research center in New York City that you know very well, is committing itself to try to improve the ability of local police departments to gather intelligence at the local level, not only to supplement, but to add dramatically to the kind of intelligence we now gather at the federal level. What have you seen at this effort, and what direction do you think it should take?
Well, actually, I'm very knowledgeable about the Manhattan Institute and its efforts and its Center for Terrorism. They were very helpful to the New York City Police Department after 9/11, helping that organization to refocus and really expand its capabilities in the gathering of intelligence, the analysis of it, and the response to it. I've been so impressed by their work, I actually have them now working out here on a very similar effort. It can literally save me and my department, Los Angeles Police Department, 2 years of building time by just taking the learned experiences from New York, applying them here. What I'm committed to doing is to take those experiences and very quickly share them with my colleagues in the Police Executive Research Forum and Major City Chiefs Organization so that we can rapidly spread the expertise on the gathering of intelligence, the analysis of it, and the use of it. And the Manhattan Institute in that regard is really fulfilling a vital role in that arena. They have the expertise, they have the resources that oftentimes we don't have with our public funds to pay for the consultants, to pay for the people who are on retainer as instant experts if we have a question about this or that. And the name of the game is intelligence. We're going to rise or fall on the quality of it, the analysis of it. And we have a long way to go. And in my case, that I'm very admiring of what Ray Kelly has done in the New York City Police Department.
It gives me great honor to present Commissioner Raymond Kelly with the Manhattan Institute's 2005 Urban Innovator Award.
He has really worked yeoman's hours to protect that city.
We have to have a strong, robust, active police department, and of course, we are playing a major role in protecting the city from a terrorist attack.
We had a conversation a number of months back in which he said to me, Bill, he says, it's not so much that the feds won't share the information. Oftentimes, they don't have it to share. And it's incumbent upon, in his case, the New York City Police Department, or in my case, the Los Angeles Police Department, to make up for the gaps. In the case of Los Angeles, I have one of my sergeants, my bomb sergeants, who has spent a phenomenal amount of time in Iraq, Afghanistan, and he's over there both training our personnel, because he's one of the top experts in the world on suicide bombers and these roadside explosive devices. One of the reasons I'm committing him over there for so much time is I'm bringing him back here to start training my people on what to watch for, because in dealing with terrorism in the 21st century, we're increasingly understanding the importance of the local input, local component of this, and we're going to have to resource more adequately than we've been doing personnel for local policing.
And we have to think of different ways or different areas that a terrorist may hide some type of package or explosive. And all these combine to be good methods for counterterrorism, just to try to stay on top of the game and possibly stay a little bit ahead of the game.
Good girl!
As much as we want black and whites in the street in a very understaffed and underpoliced city, we also have to have people sitting in front of a computer terminal, and that role is every bit as critical as the role of the police officer in the black and white on the street. Fortunately, we finally now have personnel resources appropriate to what I think are the threats and the ability to protect against those threats here in LA.
Many people who watch television get the impression that the FBI and local police departments are always at loggerheads. Could you characterize what the state of the relationship is today?
I can speak very specifically here in Los Angeles that is like this. We have phenomenally good relationships with all of our federal colleagues, and within the County of Los Angeles, with its 45 separate police departments, similarly, we are also coordinating very well. Actually, we could serve as the national model in that respect. And around the country, the FBI has made a concerted effort to improve its relationships. And if there's a benefit coming out of September 11th, 2001, it is this idea that the tensions that were existing for decades before that horrific event are lessening. And I'm also president of the Police Executive Research Forum, which includes among its members some of the largest police departments and leaders in the country. And we, as a group working with the Major City Chiefs Organization, have been making the case that the federal government needs to work much more closely with us. But CompStat, problem-oriented policing, basically very assertive policing against those carrying guns, those are all local initiatives supported by the feds. We recently here on the West Coast broke up what we felt was one of the most significant threats to surface since September 11th, And that was a threat emanating out of our prison system, in which a group of individuals began robbing gas stations after their release to raise money for ammunition, weapons, and explosives, that they were going to attack Jewish synagogues on high holy days and recruiting stations, military recruiting stations.
Was this a case that began in Torrance, California?
That's correct. Two Torrance detectives make an arrest and don't just stop with the arrest. They do a rollback warrant, get into the individuals' houses, find what they see as seems to them to be terrorist-related material. They bring in the Long Beach Joint Terrorism Task Force, FBI, Long Beach Police. FBI very quickly recognized that this is a very significant and serious threat. Within 48 hours, I had almost 100 Los Angeles detectives from my terrorism units working on that case with the FBI. They ultimately brought in 400 agents. That's how significant we thought this case was. And thought it was, and it was. It was a very significant threat.
It must be difficult to build an intelligence system that helps you identify people who might become terrorist threats, who are homegrown terrorist threats, who are using crime to finance their activities in a way that permits you to intercept the threat and prevent the offense, but does not infringe on the religious rights of Muslims or other people. Can you strike that balance easily, or?
We can. I use the expression that we have to police constitutionally, and certainly in this issue, the idea of gathering intelligence, eavesdropping, we have to ensure that we do it constitutionally. We need to re-educate our officers to be watching for the new paradigm of fear.
Take that extra step in investigating a traditional crime to see if it might have a terrorist
The extra
implication.
step, or the extra sensory awareness. For example, in London, Sir Ian Blair was over recently giving a series of lectures, the head of Scotland Yard, about the subway bombings in London, and talking about how a building superintendent in a neighborhood noticed that in the trash bins there were all types of bottles of some type of chemical mixture. If he had raised that issue with the local Bobby, maybe the Bobby also attuned to the idea that, geez, this stuff can be used for explosives. The gentleman upstairs, possibly from an element that we're concerned with, then puts one and one together and comes up with two. And we have a terrorism investigation underway before the action occurs.
What was the one or two things you would most like to receive for law enforcement in Los Angeles or in the nation generally from political leaders that you don't now have?
One, appropriate resources, and two, prioritization of resources. In dealing with the issue of terrorism, the good news is in the 1990s we finally got it right in terms of dealing with traditional crime. We understood that we needed to gather information quickly, analyze it, and respond rapidly to it with effective tactics. We had sufficient resources in the 1990s, the Omnibus Crime Bill, 100,000 more cops, and we began to get it right. Crime went down 30%. Good news, in the 21st century, the new paradigm of fear, terrorism is all about gathering intelligence and analyzing it and then rapidly responding to what it tells you. Get them before they get us. We're about to open shortly with the FBI a joint anti-terrorist intelligence center, a JRIC as they're called, the acronym. And $4 million investment by the FBI to build and equip the facility, and myself, the Sheriff's Department of Los Angeles County, the FBI, Homeland Security, will staff it with analysts who are all in the same room, sharing information.
What we're looking at is a very large space. As you can see, it would hold approximately 68 people, or desk spots in the main part. We are just starting, but eventually when we do go full speed, we'll be going 3 shifts, or in other words, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The good news is there's dozens of these being built around the country. The challenge is going to be, in our democracy, to ensure that there's not abuses of the information that's being gathered, that it's not being shared inappropriately, that it's not being gathered illegally. It's pretty much agreed that New York, Washington, and LA are the 3 most likely targets, particularly for an al-Qaeda type of operation. Why? Because an attack in any one of those 3 cities would have phenomenal impact politically in Washington, D.C., economically in New York City, and symbolically, and economically and symbolically in Los Angeles, more so than an attack anywhere else in the country. So that where does that balance lie? Where does that prioritization lie? That in the sense of determining where do the scarce dollars go? That once again is where the idea of increasing appreciation that local police, local private security forces are the front line of defense. And based on some of the past historical experiences, we're going to have to really watch that very closely, that we do it constitutionally, that we do it compassionately in the sense that we're not profiling, and that we do it consistently. Consistently in that we're going to have to be doing this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of our lives and our children's lives. The world has changed, and it's going to continue to change.
Indeed, it has changed. We've had a lot of experience with the police. For a while, we had crime-oriented policing. Then we've had public order-oriented policing and community policing. And now I think we're going into an era, because of the terrorist attack, in which we have to deal with intelligence-led policing, in which intelligence analysts working with police officers who are trained to understand and seek out intelligence become a very important part of how we manage the terrorist threat in this country. And you, Bill, and your colleagues in New York and other cities are doing a wonderful job in trying to show us the way.